So welcome everybody. Welcome to EQUUS. We just have some technological issues happening. I don't know if that's weird. I think there's some feedback going on. Okay, we're just going to let a few other people on. Hey, welcome. Welcome to another Ask Me Anything. I'm so glad that you could join us here today. Before I make a really in-depth introduction to our guest today, I am going to introduce you to Thunder Bear Yates from the Tesuque Pueblo, who will welcome us to country and bless this space that we are all in, virtual and actual, before we begin. Over to you, Thunder Bear.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. All right, I'm going to do this invocation with my native language, so everybody can just enter your space and just feel my words. In Wawatumo, Kudawahan, Nawahorim Poa, Ekibo, Nawaho, Wisiki Sekane, Nawaho, Navitu Limu, Howi, Ansha, Wimani, Ingeha, Wit A, Navitu Horimu, Ho. Wisigi sekane ayamari kayamari hoen no ho ekribo we wo to ha hoinke hoimegi hoen mimu no segundo anseng yo up yo kawen ho no ho we boy yonu ho we again go ho no ho we in ansha ho eki humani ha ichampori we move. Thank you. So just a little bit of recall on my prayer. It's just a formal thing that's done in the land that we live in here since the beginning of time for us. And it's just allowing everybody to come together for everybody's hearts and minds to be open to let the knowledge and information be accepted with everybody's greater good in mind. So that's just what that's all about. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Thunder Bear. Thank you so much. So I am very honored to introduce to you our guest tonight with our series, Ask Me Anything, Thunder Bear Yates. Our Ask Me Anything series was inspired by an endeavor first introduced to me called the Human Library. And it was invented by someone in Denmark who creates these experiences where instead of books that you check out from the library, you get to walk into the room and check out a person who is a book, an open book. And you get to sit down with that person and have a long conversation and ask questions. And the hopes of that experiment was that often people whose voices are not heard could be heard, and people could sit down and have conversations and ask scary questions and ask that, what might be a stupid question. It's a safe place for those questions to be asked. And so Ask Me Anything comes from that spirit that we love to bring guests on to come once a month and speak to us, share a little bit of their insight and wisdom, but then open the floor. And Thunder Bear has offered very graciously and generously to be a part of this series in our Ask Me Anything tonight. And you really can ask Thunder Bear anything, and I'll be moderating at the time. I don't read the chat so well. You can throw your question in the chat, And I'll capture it and then feed it to Thunder Bear, or you can raise your hand and I'll call on you then. If everybody could just mute their microphones now, just so we can only have Thunder Bear as the speaker. And when you, if you have a question, then you can unmute your microphone. And then we'll go from there. So Thunder Bear, I met Thunder Bear a few years ago when he first came to Thunderbird Ridge, the EQUUS Discovery and Learning Campus here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I needed somebody who I could really rely on, who would take care of the land and help me take care of the animals, the horses, take care of the people who come here, really have an eye on things. And Thunder Bear came down my driveway, and I knew instantly that he was the person who was the right person. Thunder Bear has dual membership in the Tesuque Pueblo and the Nambe Pueblo. He is a ceremonial dancer for the Tesuque Pueblo. He is the convener of the Cottonwood Dancers, who are ceremonial dancers who come to Thunderbird Ridge sometimes and present or gift their ceremonial buffalo and deer dance for different groups that we have. And he is, Thunder Bear would not say this, but I would say he's a wisdom carrier, and he's very committed to continuing his culture, his native language, his culture, and helping to teach others in his community, the young people especially, so that culture can be retained, so that culture is not lost. And without anything further, I will hand it over to you, Thunder Bear, with anything you want to share with us, and then I'll open the floor to questions.
Okay, thank you, Cal. So, like Kelly was saying, I'm part of two pueblos, Nambe and Tesuque. They're pretty much considered sister pueblos, along with Cochiti as well. So they're really in tight bonds with the ceremonial and dancing aspects of the culture. I wanted to start off with just a little bit of the origin story of my people. We're people that doesn't have a written language. It was our language and history has all been oral, passed down orally for generations, and that's how we keep our culture alive. It's usually done more in the summer days when we're working out in the fields and doing everything that needs to be done that can sustain us through the winter. So with that, it's all about gathering, planting, and the hunting doesn't come till later in the fall. But that's what we consider ourselves as hunter-gatherer farmers, and that's the way we sustain our lives here in the high desert. Most natives are considered I forgot what they're called, nomads. Nomads, they follow the food source. Most plains follow the buffalo, but in our case, we wanted to be a stationary people, so carving out our ditchways for our waterways, for our irrigation systems, for our planting our big fields is what really allowed us to be stationary. So being stationary allowed us to stay in this area, but some of the drawbacks were that we often were raided by different natives, such as the Navajos and the Apaches, and a little bit to the north with the Utes. But with any civilization, there is a little bit of conflict. So we often went to war with the Comanches and the Utes and the Navajos were our main rivals. So out of necessity, the natives started building plazas and using adobe bricks. They will make what I consider a fortress. Most pueblos have a plaza where all the ceremonial events happen. So it serves as many purposes. A religional place, and then in times of war, they would bring all the livestock and they will hold themselves in this little square fortress in the middle of sacred territory, and that's where they would hold themselves against intruders and any threats that was going on. Let's see. Our origin story, we believe that we used to live underground, however thousands of years ago, and out of this, we believe we sprung out of the ground. One of our gods created a doorway for us to come out from the underworld, and from there, this is where we came to live. We there's what is called the 19 Pueblos. We got 8 to the north and 11 to the south. The south usually speaks Keres, and the northern Pueblos speak Tewa. We may seem divided, but we're all still considered one whole people, even though the language is 2 different languages. So in this aspect, we're still, we all come together at the beginning of each year to acknowledge the new leaders that are picked from each pueblo. So this is an annual thing. So it's held in San Domingo. So there's a big feast with all traditional gatherings. There's a big feast that goes on. So Callie can tell you about all the bread and the cookies that she often gets from the leftovers from our feast days. So we have to get that. And also in my culture, we have a lot of dancing, and this is a tribute to the spirits and everything that's been harvested or used, from the animals to the plants, to the trees, to even to the clouds and the rain that's brought. So with each ceremony, there's different time sets and different meanings. So we got dances for the animals, which provide leather and for our clothes and our shoes and for whatever ties we need. Then we got our rain dance, which we just did in late June, and that's more for the crops and just the healing of the plants that need to be sustained to give us our crops. So throughout this time frame, it's all vigorous activity. The dancing goes on for the whole day. It's really taxing on the mind because you're out there in almost 90-95 degree weather, and it's hot, and you got on all this special attire, and it's taxing physically, but I think it's more on the mind that it takes all the exhaustion on. Let's see, I got a couple of things that I want. Our traditional calendar starts off with the winter solstice, and that's the end of our year. So after that, we have a new council that is appointed, and the appointments are done by the two leaders of the summer clan and the winter clan. So if you're initiated man, this is your fair game. So we all have this big meeting and we discuss what happened through the whole year. Anybody can take the floor and express how they feel, what went wrong, what went good, what they need to see more of, or just anything that's on anybody's mind. So once you become of age, around 13, 14, or 15, you're initiated into a man and or a woman and considered a full member of the pueblo. So after this, you're fair game to do all and everything that I expected of you. This includes having a garden, hunting, making any special attire that's required for the dances, and just showing up to do your part in the community. So in most times, good showing of your commitment allows you to be in special positions. I myself have been appointed to the tribal council to be a war chief. So that it's pretty fun, but I didn't expect it to be that hard, and there's so many little things that have to be done, that it just takes up a lot of time. So our government consists of a governor, a lieutenant governor, a tribal sheriff, 2 church keepers, and we have 4 war chiefs. The war chiefs were the original government before the Spanish came. After the Spanish came, they installed the 5 others: the governor, lieutenant, the church keepers, and the sheriff. So, but now it's still divided into sections. The war chiefs take care of more of the ceremonial and the cultural aspects, which is the governor and his crew take care of more of the modern government issues, like with dealing with collaborations with the state and the federal government, and all the other underlying issues, water rights, and territorial rights, and just the casinos and all the assets that the pueblo does have. So that's just how things got divided from the beginning. Let's see what I got here. So after a couple of centuries of being left alone and not having so much impact from other worlds, after about 1580 was the first sign of the Spaniards here in northern New Mexico. So after the encounter, it is our belief that the land is here for everybody. So if you wanted to pick up a piece of land and live there, you were welcome to, as long as you were not causing any mischief or any harm to anybody. You're free to live amongst the natives. So the Spaniards were welcome in that aspect, but soon enough that the natives found out that their intentions were to take over and convert the natives into Catholics. So this happened for a while, and the Spaniards were pretty successful. So after long 100 years of tyranny, the natives decided to revolt against the Spaniards. So they all got together and they sent out runners to each pueblo to let everybody know when the revolt was going to happen. And in doing this, they had a rope, a yucca rope tied with as many knots that they were counting down to the days, and each day they would untie a knot representing the days they were gonna attack. So a few days before, I think it was 3 days before, the runners were caught in Santa Fe, and they were caught going to Santa Fe, and they were taken to the governor's palace and hung. So when word got back to Tesuque, it was their runners that they decided to revolt a couple of days early. So after the revolt, they sent the Spaniards. They didn't kill all the Spaniards. They just killed, I think it was like quarter. But at that, they allowed the rest to return back to Mexico, to where the ships were at. So after that, they considered that a successful revolt. The first American Revolution that happened against a foreign power. So after that, I think it was about 10-12 years, the Spaniards came back and let it be known that they wanted to come back. So the Pueblos got together and had a meeting and decided that it was okay for them to come back as long as they didn't do what they did before. So ever since then, there's been a good relationships between the Spanish and the natives, and I think that's really what present day culture represents. There's a bunch of sour natives that I don't think they have the whole story, but there's still a couple out there that think negatively on the Spanish and native relationships. So after that, so now we got modern day life, and that's a real battle. For me personally, I like to live, I think I have an old soul, so I like to live a little bit out of technology's range, and it's hard for me to adapt really, but I love being out in nature, so that's really where my soul lies. And in that, my culture is really based on being aware of what everything is. We believe that everything is equal, from the rocks and the land to the biggest living animal, which will be the bison. That everybody's equal in between, from the bugs, the butterflies, to the antelope and the deer and the foxes. Everybody has an equal stake in this life. So nobody's better, nobody's underneath anybody. So walking the land and seeing all these different animals and insects is just like seeing my neighbors and telling them hi. It's a little bit of open access to different views of life, how I see it, because insects are only here for the summer. You got squirrels and other rodents that are working hard all summer, like I am, getting ready for the winter. And the deer and the antelope are free to roam and range anywhere they like. And the mountain lions and the bobcats are always being predators. So it's different life views from just this small area. Let's see what else do I got here. Education for the kids is really being lost in the modern world. So just like with any kids these days, they're all stuck to their tablets and their iPhones and the TV. Not really a lot of kids like to get out these days, but with our kids, we have our dances and our gardens, and just the general knowledge of how to use plants and different trees and different waterworks in the Pueblo lifestyle. So it is getting lost because people are not so fascinated with it anymore. But it is essential for us to keep learning this because it's part of who we are. We're taught that to live with compassion and understanding. So forgiveness is a big part of our culture, but asking for forgiveness is a big task. So we believe that we all know our intentions and believe we know what we're doing at all times. So sorry is not really a big thing in my culture, but asking for forgiveness is kind of how to go about everything, and accepting that you did wrong knowingly. So so with that, there's we also believe that there's no stupid questions. Like Kelly was saying earlier, there's no stupid questions. If you don't know, then that's why we ask questions, and that's emphasized for the youth. If you don't know, ask. If I don't know, we'll find somebody that does. So I think that's a good big positive side of my culture, is if we don't know, we'll find out one way or another. So with that, I think I'll pass it back to Cal and see what we got on questions.
Thank you, Thunder Bear. Thank you so much. One of the things that Thunder Bear said to me a few weeks ago, after he had put on these buffalo and deer dances, is how much he enjoys sharing the culture and things, and so much of the culture that Thunder Bear shares. You know, I invite all of you to imagine that this isn't, you know, some culture that we get to objectify, but something we get to be a part of. And so with that, if anybody has any questions, I'll open the floor. I'll just get started with a couple that many people wrote questions in, Thunder Bear. And the first one was, what are some ways that we can be more inclusive of Indigenous peoples in the workplace?
I think that most natives will separate the workplace and traditional lifestyle only because it's workplace is relatively a new thing to our culture. We were usually like, for example, when you became a man or a woman in the culture, you would stop going to school and start doing work duties that pertain to the community. And so now education is going further, and so is the workplace. So it's we really want to fit into we don't want to be discriminated in any way, because we got what I call, we live two lifestyles. We got the modern lifestyle, which is an everyday American life, and then you got your your traditional life, which is going back home and practicing the culture and I guess the religion. But that's really, we want to just fit in. So I don't think it really matters to a native person on how you're treated at work. I think you just want to be treated as an equal, and it's just I would say more of a luxury to be able to work, because there's a lot of time consuming efforts that go on with the culture that don't allow, I guess, works allow you to really feel comfortable with work. But I think for the most part, natives just want to be a part of the regular working class and be able to go home and do what's required in the culture.
Mhm. Thank you, Thunder Bear. And I would add to that, as someone who works with you, that that it also requires the employer to understand what you go home to, that there are responsibilities at play that are important, and that there needs to be allowances for that, because you're not available by text 24/7 because you're busy in ceremony.
Mhm.
Or so that sort of thing. Vonda, hi Vonda, so nice to see you again. So you have your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this, Thunderbird. It's wonderful to hear your experience of and to give us this history that as a British person living in America, I'm very ignorant about so much of that history. So thank you. My questions revolve around, I'm so curious to know within the culture, your culture, what is the role of women very traditionally written, or are all the roles equal now? And also, could you speak to the role of elders? And do you have a favorite story about an elder that's been an influence on you?
Yeah, so the roles of the women are pretty much the caretakers of the guys, because the guys are put in the role which requires more labor effort. So they'll be out in the fields, out hunting, doing more of, I guess, what would be considered like more the dangerous aspects of the life, because there's we believe like there's they're more vulnerable and susceptible to injuries and I guess would be considered kind of bad karma. So in order for that to happen, the the guys take all that risk, and so the ladies will take care of the men with they cook. So, and that's where their role in supporting the men happens. And the cooking is so much entwined with everything that we do. There's it's pretty much all offerings to the greater spirits that allow us to exist here. So that's all that's happening with pretty much the women, is they're preparing different offerings through, and this happens throughout the whole year, different offerings for different seasons and different ceremonies. So it's not considered the men are harder workers. It's just the men are doing more more riskier tasks in order to, because the women take care of not only the men but the children when the men are away. So it's considered equal tasks, just different subjects that and it's all equal learning in both sides. So it's the women are usually not all at the ceremonies, but they are there considered in spirit. So after each ceremony, the head elders, they always send back the prayers with the men that are there, and they always make it a point to tell them to thank the women for all that they are doing, because in my experience, women are always kind of left out in the thanks part of everything. So it's so I think that's pretty special that it's emphasized that the elders thank the women even though they're not there to hear it, and it's sent back with the men to take it to the women. So there are equal my culture has different societies, winter and summer, the sun and the moon. And with all those different societies, there are women in the same hierarchy levels as the men. So they do they have 4 men and 4 women, and they all line up. So it's they all have the same power. It's just men take more risks, I guess, just to make the women safer. I do have a favorite. Well, he didn't actually become an elder. Well, at the time it wasn't an elder. He wasn't an elder, but my grandfather, my great grandfather, he was as an infant, he was sick, and they went to the doctors and they said that he wouldn't most likely not live past 5 years old. So being a sister Pueblo, I was explaining earlier, Cochiti had these medicine men that told my great grandfather's parents that they knew of a way to save him. So they said, we can save him, but you're going to have to give him to us. So so they agreed, and they took him in to the society that they were a part of, the medicine man. And sure enough, he lived to be, I think he was like 89 when he passed away. But usually in that society, you're not a member until you're much older, maybe after you're initiated into a man or woman, and even that up to like 30, I would say, you will probably ask to be a part of that society. But he was part of that society since he was a baby, and he's had what they in my community they consider him a legend, because there hasn't been many stories about that kind of stuff happening when you're pretty much condemned to die at a young age, but your society saves your life, and you live, and you give me and the rest of my family a chance to live. And as a result of that, my family is pretty strong in the culture and in the community sense. So it's I believe we come from a strong line after my great grandfather was put in that situation to be saved. And I think it pretty much saved. He lived to be part of that community, and then come back home and take on the role of a leader, an elder in my community, which was leader of the summer clan. So he, not knowing he was gonna be that, he still graduated to be a legend in my community. So I think that gives me a lot of purpose to keep going on, that we're here by the grace of whatever happened there that saved his life. So that's how I feel about that.
Thank you so much for that story. Thank you, Thunder Bear.
Of course.
Thank you. Raven, you have your hand up. Hi, Raven.
Aloha. I'm so grateful to be able to witness the history, and I just moved here a couple months ago, and I'm wanting to really learn more about the different cultures that are surrounding me. And I love Thunder Bear. I love what you said about how your culture has passed down so much through oral tradition and through story. I really believe that story is very powerful. And so I'm curious, as someone who has just moved here, I really would love to learn more through stories and through the sharing of stories and traditions. And so I'm wondering, is there any sort of communities or places or events or things that happen where your culture and your communities come together to share stories?
Up until the pandemic happened, it was going on all the time. Most of the time we have our ceremonies that are open to the public, and during this time we will have, most of the time it's dances, and at these dances there's always breaks in between the dance, and you will be invited to somebody's house to go and eat and share a meal with traditional foods. And at this time, this is where all the stories and communication happens. So just sitting at the table, you will most likely hear some kind of story or some kind of event or some kind of recollection from somebody that's giving knowledge to, because there's all age types at the table, from little kids to most likely the grandparents or the elders that are giving the stories to the little kids. So that always happens, and that's just something I miss so much with the pandemic happening. It's limiting the events that go on in our community. But outside of ceremonial events, we have different Pueblo establishments that do coordinate these things. One of the big ones being in Tesuque Pueblo. They have a city about 15 minutes north of Santa Fe, and they have there the Poe Center, which coordinates classes and storytelling events, and just a bunch of just a variety of events that that host the Pueblo culture, and teaching. I think they have a tourist division there too that teaches culture and proper etiquette when going to Pueblo, because like we understand that Pueblo culture and just general information on natives is very limited at school, and maybe only be a couple of pages in the textbooks, and we understand that. So giving information to the people is kind of a duty of ours, to let them know what's expected when you come and visit a Pueblo or one of these native tribes in New Mexico. So it's there's plenty of places. I'm not too sure if there's a lot of websites, but there's I think there's a couple in Albuquerque. They have the Indian Pueblo Culture Center there that does the same thing as the Tesuque Poe Center. So there is a couple of places that is dedicated to giving knowledge out to people, different ethnic groups that want to visit or engage in the Pueblo culture.
Beautiful. That's so helpful. Thank you so much for the information. Mahalo.
You're welcome.
So let's see, we have another, yeah, so Thunder Bear, actually, this one's for me. I just want to ask you, you said earlier that your culture doesn't like asking for forgiveness is important, but the word I'm sorry is not important. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, we believe that every action and intention is known and is done willingly. So if you're lying to somebody, or if you're taking something, or if you're you just have bad intentions, it's all that person. So sorry is not something that we believe is true. I think it's more of a more of a modern day thing, because like if you know you're gonna run into somebody, you have the option of staying on course or taking a left, but you decide to stay course most of the time. So that's, I guess, what we believe. So but asking for forgiveness is more of the harder part than asking for accepting and being held accountable for your actions is what's considered while wiping the slate clean. So it's and there's there's a big kind of a big speech that goes with asking for forgiveness. You have to you have to get down on your knees to do it right, and it's putting yourself out there, being vulnerable to whoever you did wrong to. So you're on your knees and you're asking the spirits to bear witness that you're accepting your wrongs and putting it out there for everybody to know that you did something wrong, and you're asking for forgiveness. Whether they want to forgive you or not, you're actually putting out the effort to do so.
Thank you. Beautiful. Ray has just chimed in the chat. Curious as to what brought the two tribes to northern New Mexico. Sorry, Ray, let me just, I have to put my glasses on. What percentage of tribe members remain on the Pueblos? What, okay, does that make sense, Thunder Bear?
Percentage of, what was that?
So Ray, would you mind to ask the question?
No, not at all.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Thunder Bear, for being here. I've had the pleasure of spending time with you while at EQUUS, and a gentle soul, and I appreciate everything you're sharing tonight. My question was, when you were talking about the history, you started talking about the Nambe and your own tribe. And I'm curious, have those tribes always been in northern New Mexico, or how did you get there? How did the tribes come to northern New Mexico?
So in our belief, when we came out of the ground, we only came out maybe 50 miles north of here. So we all came out as one group. But as we spread down through the Rio Grande Valley, we started breaking off slowly apart from one another, and they started migrating more south. So now we have all the way from Taos being the most northern Pueblo, and Isleta just south of Albuquerque as being the most southern Pueblo, and then we got Zuni all the way to the southwest as far as that. But in scientific knowledge, we were coded to be ascending from the Anasazi natives, which were up in Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon area, and So in that northern New Mexico, southern Colorado area is where we are believed to originate from. I think it was about 7,000 years ago that they dated back. And then we just slowly migrated south and you got different ruins from Bandelier and Puye cliff dwellings. So those are just some of the stops that are in the scientific road to where we are now. Before the Spaniards, there was probably more than 100 pueblos in the Rio Grande Valley, but just as time and wars raged on, the 19 pueblos are just what's left. We have Albuquerque and Santa Fe that used to be pueblos before the Spanish settled there and made them into what are cities now. There was a lot of spiritual sites there. The Loreto Chapel, the one that has the staircase with no nails, that was believed to be built by some spiritual stranger. That was built on a spring that was a holy spring for the people that live there, and I think it still transcends into different holy places. But yeah, it's this is the place that we believe was meant for us. Our legends hold it, and our origin stories hold it, and I think it's a great place because we really don't have to worry about any natural disasters. We really don't feel earthquakes. We don't have no tsunamis or hurricanes here. What else? We don't get flooded. Flash floods maybe, but those are their own danger. But the way the the Midwest sees the flooding, volcanoes. Well, we have a big volcano here, but a super volcano, the Jemez mountain range, was I think it was bigger than Mount Everest before it blew. I think about 3 million years ago, they say. So this is the high desert, perfect for me and my culture and people that live here. So
Thank you.
mhm.
Thank you.
Senator Bear, we have time for one more question, and Dee's had her hand up for a while. Dee?
Hello. So I can't have it. Okay, there we go. Hello. Thank you, Thunder Bear, for your amazing talk. It's not my question, but I really appreciate what you were saying about forgiveness. So powerful. I have the really great good fortune somehow to be living way up Pacheco Canyon on this land where it has a spring and really extraordinary. And I'm gardening, and my question is very pragmatic, because you learn to raise chickens with the coyotes and the bobcats, and the garden with the gophers and the squirrels, and it's a really whole new way of learning. And so my question is really, I've heard some things about the wisdom of the gardens here, and if there are ever opportunities to learn, I would love that. And I don't know, I suppose with COVID, but it's just a question of that gardening lore of this area. It feels so sacred somehow. And I guess I'm just asking to know if there are ever opportunities to learn more about this particular patch of incredible earth and, caring for it.
Yeah, the main thing is what we believe is acknowledging the earth. Mother Earth, she's provides everything that we need, and it's emphasized not to take more than what we need. but to always give back more than we can. It's always giving back is what helps everybody, from the animals to the insects to the ground to everything. So planting helps turn up the dirt and reanimate, because the dirt is so dry around here with the clay. It's hard to keep the ground full of nutrients. So when planting these gardens, it's always emphasized to pray, and that's what's gonna help when you're done with your crops at the end of the season, to till it back into the earth, so it helps reanimate the earth with all the insects and all the essential organisms that's needed for the life to be, or for the ground to be fertile. So that's one of the main things that my culture believes in that circle of life, is to take, even at the end of the harvest season, it's always tradition to leave a little bit of your crop in the field, because we call them EQUUS in my language, and that means the mother, and she's providing for you that garden that you work so hard through the summer months to keep going, that you give her some of what you harvest, or what was grown there. So I think the traditional way was called the Three Sisters. The beans, corn, and squash were all grown in one group. So the corn will go straight up. The corn stalk will provide a pillar for the beans to grow on, and the squash provided nitrogen for all three of them. So it was just a harmonious group that they somehow figured out. I don't know, but it's pretty fascinating on how everything comes together. It seems like the knowledge is always there, but it doesn't, like, so it's not so clear on how they came about it. It's just like they knew what they were doing. So it's all of that into one. The knowledge, the effort, and the praying is what my culture is all about. Is those three, and handing all of them down to the next generation is essential for us to keep going in this lifestyle, not only for us as a people, but for the whole ecosystem. We all, like I was saying, we all are equal, and we all provide for each other in that circle of life, being a part of the land instead of being on the land.
Well, thank you. And also thank you so much for the rain prayers. It's so green. I feel like it's Costa Rica or somewhere in the canyon, and the garden is just unbelievable with the rain and the sun and the rain and the sun. And I did my best to pray, and thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, I was telling Kelly, we were having our rain dance, and it almost got postponed because of COVID. They were going through so many precautions to prevent the spreading of the COVID, even to downsizing the dancing group. And I was appointed to lead the dance group this year, my first time I ever got to do it. So I was pretty hyped to do it, but it didn't happen. They postponed it one time, but it eventually happened. And after that, the rain came, and it was, I know what you're saying. It just feels so great to have this monsoon season come back to us here. So
it is. Oh my gosh, this hour has gone by so fast. And what I'm left with is what you said, Thunder Bear, whether it's with a garden or any endeavor, anything we want to grow, knowledge, effort, and prayer. Those three, that's really special. So we will have, I am sure we will have Thunder Bear back again. If you will do it again, Thunder Bear, because there are so many more questions people are wanting to ask. And clearly this has been absolutely our most popular AMA yet. And so we'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for your time and your energy and your care. And we're just so benefited by your presence at EQUUS on the land and with the animals, and here virtually in this room with these good people who are part of the EQUUS community. This recording will be sent to all of you, and please share it around to all your friends and your family, and spread the good news about what EQUUS is doing in the world, how we are striving to return some sense of sanity back to the world with sane conversations and important wisdom. And thank you for being here. And we will see you soon. And look out for all the new things coming your way in your inbox. Thanks, Thunder Bear. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Mhm.